Recording started.
Today we are going to discuss about ethics. Ethics is very important when it comes to research, when it comes to doing a project, when it comes to do anything as a project, as part of your course in academic environment. Ethics is very vital. The author Zobel, in chapter 17, which is the last chapter of this book, Writing for Computer Science, he discussed about ethics. So let's go through what he talks about in terms of ethics. Ethics, when you talk about ethics, what is important here? You don't try to fool people. Science is all about trust. People trust what you write. So as a researcher, as a student of science, as a student of IT, okay, you should be honest. You should do your job ethically, properly. When you say that I have done this experiment, I have done this project, people trust your output. They are not checking your code exactly. They are not running it. But they trust you that you have implemented it, you got these results, you are reporting the results as they are. So that is what is called codes of soft conduct. If you misuse them, if you go against them, the consequences are very serious. And when you publish anything, make sure you publish something new, something clear, fair enough. Don't hide things. Don't plagiarize. Don't distort the truth. Tell the truth as they are. Don't make your opinions look like facts. Also, plagiarism is an unethical behavior, and it's easy to detect. There's also problems in terms of power. Some senior academics, some managers have this habit of instructing people to add their names in their papers, which they have not contributed anything or contributed very little, right? And there is also fraud is available. People do their experiment. They claim in the paper what they did not really observe, what they did not get in their experiment. So ethics involves many aspects. It involves misrepresentation. You are representing things differently, which is not truth. You are plagiarizing, maybe you are self-plagiarizing, you are gaining authorship, or you are giving authorship to people who don't deserve it. You are doing things like handling conflict of interest, misuse of power, and use of human subjects wrongly. Ethics can easily be checked, verified, sorted out. What has to be done is not to make immediate actions. Check, verify, understand what is the kind of breach of conduct which is done, and then take an action. Many times there are differences between advisors and students, or between senior and junior academics. Senior and junior in the sense people who have worked for some long time, people who are new into academics. That's all. There's nothing else like somebody is powerful than the other. No such things. In this situation, it is good to bring in a senior academic, somebody who is experienced, whom people respect. Sit down with them, talk to them, explain to them the problem, consult them and solve your problem. Don't do whistleblowing, like go and talk to everybody, oh, this happened, that happened. Don't create publicly accusing people. This will end careers of life of people. What about intellectual creations? To whom the intellectual creation belongs to? Is it the person who developed it? Is it the employer? Is it the publisher? Things differ here. If you talk about copyright, it is about expression of ideas. It is not the idea. Copyright does not work on the idea. It works on how you express it, like a figure, like some text, like this. If you want to protect your idea, then this is about patents. Okay, patents, they protect your process, your invention, your concept, which is mostly of idea, not how you describe them. Okay, so you can see there's a difference between patenting and copywriting. When you publish a paper, the author gives the copyright to the publisher. So for example, if somebody is going to use your text, your figure, your diagrams, they should get permission from the publisher. Okay, not just the author, it should be from the publisher. But if you are using small amount of text, very small amount, and then you are attributing it, you are citing it appropriately, then that is fine. And it is quoted properly to say it is not my text, it is verbatim from somebody else's text, it's fine. According to the law, plagiarism is usually infringement of copyright. But if you take in academic environment, plagiarism is something broad. Anything with regard to theft of intellectual creation. Somebody has done something, you are just stealing it. Okay, this is called plagiarism in academic environment. Who owns the intellectual creation? There is nothing like a law that covers it, or laws differ from one country to another, so it is very different. Okay, but what people expect is you have to be consistent in your job, you have to be acknowledging people's work, people's efforts. So this is what is expected in academic environment, irrespective of which country, which discipline you belong to. When you talk about plagiarism, what is plagiarism? You take some material from some paper or some article and just use it without acknowledging it. Or maybe use their figures, their tables, their results without even giving credit to them. Sometimes you plagiarize yourself. You have already published something, so for which you already got credit. Now you are repeating that one again. That is called self-plagiarism. Many times plagiarism happens not because you want to do it, but because of inexperience or unknowingly. Okay, you just try to do something, you are referring to something, you thought you can just imitate them to make it good, and you end up in plagiarized text. And there are a lot of software available to check for it. Here is an example. The original text in the paper is this: the impact of viruses has become a major issue in many large organizations, but most still rely on individual users maintaining virus definitions with no internal firewalls to protect one user from another. However, any structure is only as strong as its weakest link. These organizations are highly vulnerable. If someone uses the same text, slightly changes, and writes like this: viruses has become a major issue in many organizations, but most organizations still rely on this and that. However, any structure is only as strong as this. So you can see it is very close. It is almost similar to the original text. It has citation, but it is not mentioned that this is a quote. It is not given as a quote, or it is not intended so that it is like something verbatim from the original text. So this is plagiarized text. Instead, if somebody writes like this: as discussed by so-and-so, who investigated the impact of this virus in large organizations, most still rely on individual users. So here the same text follows, but only that it is under quote. Once it is under a quotation, it means this is verbatim copy from somebody else. So it is fine. This is okay. You can summarize the text instead of writing exactly. You can write in your own format, something like this: investigated the impact of this. They found organizations are vulnerable even if people have their virus definition up to date. Okay. So if you provide citation, it's not just enough. Like, for example, if you take a table, you are taking some headings, okay, and you are following the same criteria of the literature review, or experiments are similar, then you are plagiarizing the text. You have a paper, you are just copying the same text but writing slightly differently. So, sometimes people do this. They copy text from another paper, hoping to rephrase it later on, to change it later on, but they forget to do it. This ends up in plagiarized text. Okay, when you are writing something, don't use another paper as a guide, kind of. Let's just following the structure exactly. Then you will be ending up in plagiarized text. And always indicate when you cite something where it starts, where it ends. If you have figures, make your own figure. Don't copy paste somebody else's figure, or don't redraw exactly the same as someone else's figure. And it is very important for an advisor, for a supervisor, to indicate to the student whether it is a project, whether it is a research. The supervisor or the advisor should inform the student: look, there is what is called plagiarism. These are the impact of it. And plagiarism falls on all the authors. It is on the shoulder of all the authors. It is their job. What about self-plagiarism? If I'm going to have two papers, for my old paper, I have already got credit. Right? Don't put it again in another paper that I get 2 times credit for one single work. If I'm having a paper which is an enhanced version of another paper, still it is better. You should rewrite the background material. Rewriting will make it fresh, will give value to the new paper. You are not considered somebody unethical or lazy, just copying paste. And remember, maybe in your old paper you had 4 authors. Now you have 3 authors maybe. One of them is not in this paper. So You have to understand that whole paper goes to all the authors, not to you alone who is the main author, for example. If you are having results, don't use the same results more than once, like in one paper and another paper. In two papers, you cannot use one single result. This is prohibited by the standard scientific codes of conduct. If you are, for example, you have an article, okay, and you are referring to a preliminary publication, you are allowed to use some amount of reuse, provided you indicate, okay, this is an extension version of this paper, and so on. Then there is a limit that you can use this much percentage, okay. The journals dictate you how much percentage maximum you can have reuse. Similarly, if you submit a paper to a conference and a journal at the same time, the same paper, or you are submitting a paper to two journals at the same time, or to two conferences at the same time, this is not acceptable. This should not be followed. For example, if I have some experiment, I use one data, I get results, I publish a paper. Next time, I use the same experiment on a different set of data. This is not called as a new work. It's not a new research. People might not notice that you are using plagiarized text, you are using self-plagiarism at the point of publication, but in the future, people will figure out. Right? If you are using some figures or you are using a lot of paragraphs, a couple of paragraphs from somebody's text, you need permission from the publisher. Also remember, if you have your own paper, you want to put it on the web, public for people. After it has been published, you need the permission of the publisher to do so. In many countries, if you have a publicly funded research, then you can provide the information about this funded research online public. It's allowed. Misrepresentation. You do some experiment, you get some results. You write them as if you got something else. The way you write is not accurate of what you got. The way you should write is in such a way that somebody can replicate or reproduce your experiment. Indicate what are the limitations. Don't make false claims. Okay? Don't look like your results are the best in the world. Right? Be clear what you did. Okay? And if you have some experiments which are unsuccessful, which is common to have some unsuccessful experiments, report them as well. Right? And sometimes what people do is they take somebody else's work as a baseline, and that work is a poor work, for example, or an old work, and you understate the other people's work. You shouldn't do that. You should not undermine somebody. Also, you should not make your work as too big. You should not exaggerate your work. And if you are referring to some online text, online version, make sure you provide the version number, the date, and so on when the actual web page or web document was accessed. And please maintain your data of your research for 5 years so you can share them, or it can be available to others or accessible to others. What about authorship? This is an issue. Anyone who has done significant contribution to the intellectual part of the paper can be an author. Not somebody who did the programming for you, somebody who did the proofreading. They will not be authors of your paper. Okay? So author, someone to be an author, he or she is expected to have been involved in the conception of the idea, execution, or interpretation of the results. Should not provide authorship just because he is my boss or for some favoring purpose. You shouldn't do that. Okay? Someone who is a manager trying to get fund for you does not deserve to be an author in the paper. When you want to include somebody as an author in your paper, get prior permission. You should get their permission as well. For example, if you are doing a bigger project, okay, and if someone is part of the project, does not mean the person should be an author in your paper. Question is whether he has contributed or not. If someone has contributed very little and he doesn't deserve to be an author, then he should be acknowledged. Okay. There are issues sometimes in courses where the student and the supervisor works on some research. Okay. Usually the student does a lot of work. He gets, ideas about writing. He does the experiment. He does collect the background literature and so on. So he should be the main author, and the advisor or the supervisor follows up. Right? So if you add the advisor to the paper, his name as an author to the paper, that means the advisor also accepts the quality and the originality of the paper. Advisor should not publish a paper from a student work without the permission of the student, and vice versa. Okay, it should not be other way around as well. And if you are going to put the author list, number 1, number 2, number 3 authors, provide them, order them according to their contributions. Okay, not alphabetical, not due to the power, not due to anything else, but based on their contributions. If you talk about confidentiality, okay, you should have your codes, your executable available under CC, which is commercial in confidence. If somebody is using your software while you have used commercial tools inside, commercial software inside, it might be breach of licensing. You have to be careful with this, okay? Right? If you have some relation with some company and you're doing a research with them, disclose it, that it is worked with this. If you are assigned a referee and you have difficulty in reviewing the paper because of conflict of interest, meaning you know the person personally, or you are in the same department, or you have worked with them before, so this will make sure that you normally tend to accept the paper instead of really thoroughly checking the paper properly. Then in that case, return the paper back to the editor, informing conflict of interest. When you review any paper, you should review based on the contents of the paper, not on who is the author, what kind of author he is, which university he belongs to. These things should not be considered. But if suppose you are reviewing a paper and that paper replicates what you are doing, it is better to inform the editor about it. And please respond quickly. Don't delay. Any delay is going to delay the acceptance or the comments on the paper. It hurts the author. Okay. Also, when you are reviewing a paper, don't show the paper to your colleagues that you are reviewing this paper. If you are giving somebody to review it, that's fine. And many times, obviously, you get some idea from reading a paper which you are reviewing, but you need to maintain confidentiality in this. Here is the last list of checklists in this book for ethics purpose. Do you know what are the institution's code of conduct? All the authors listed, they know, they have been informed they are authors. Did you omit somebody who deserves to be there? Okay. And if you have used human studies, did you get clearance from them, ethics clearance? And do you have any conflict of interest in the publication of the work? What about the citation, the contribution of the paper is clear or not? And did you explain the results clearly that somebody can replicate it? Is everything in your paper, the text, the figure, the illustration, all yours? If it is from somebody, do you have the copyright? Do you have permission to use it? Okay. And if you are extending something, did you inform the editor that this is an extension of this paper? And if you have any recycled material from your old experiment, do you have something like this? Or are you indicating it? Can someone get the data used in this experiment? Can you run the same experiment again and get the same results? What about the limitations? Did you indicate them? Like, did you use any proprietary code or some confidential data? Is it so? Okay. Is it clearly mentioned? It is clearly stated. What about the claims and contributions of this paper? Did you overstate them? Did you make it exaggerated? Check all this before you submit your paper. So ethics is very important. Ethics is vital for any research because research is actually based on trust. Research, any project, anything related to our computing area is based on trust. People are trusting you, so be ethical. Don't put your career under question mark. Thank you.